Right. Hey gang. Well, let's see if I can get my monitor going here. Yeah, should be good. Hallelujah. It's been quite the time getting set up here. Subscriptions. Yes, I am subscribed to my own channel. All right, I know the music is a little loud. Don't tell me the music is loud, I already know it. Just not gonna do anything about it. Because I like it. All right, so done mixing my paints. I can move you back up so you can see my whole easel. For those of you who don't know who in the world this is, it's talking, that'd be me. My name's Dan, thank you, good to meet you. It's like looking in a mirror, you know, oh, my hair's a mess. My hair's still a mess. Let me show you where I am. I'm in my favorite place to paint in the whole world, which is downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. We have one main street. I've probably painted this street 200 or 300 times in my life, which you're right, I don't need to come here to paint it. That's not true. You do, you always need to see what you're painting. I'm going to start out with acrylics, of course. It has been, it seems like ages since I was down here. It's been at least since last summer sometime. So 10 months. No, a year, because, no, I remember, I just remembered. It was the first or second week of the coronavirus craziness is the last time I was here. So it's been over a year, my goodness. Well, hallelujah. This is a red letter day. It's so good to be back. And I brought some music with me today. Now, I was hoping that this was going to be a grand opening, a big first day first day out with my new equipment. But it turns out my wife and I have a house full of company coming for supper tonight. And I got to get home to fire up the grill about 5 o'clock. So this is going to be quite a truncated day. So because of that, I have a truncated equipment. But let me take just a minute and show you what that means. First of all, it means I brought a sound system, brought a stick. You like that? Brought a sound system that right at the moment is playing music from my iPad. I brought a guitar with my micro pedal board, special effects and so on. I brought my harmonicas. I brought a trumpet, a flugelhorn. So I play 50 instruments. I'm kidding. That's it. Well, anyway, I don't know if it's kidding or not. When I set up my big equipment, I'm surrounded by about 60 instruments to be exact. But a lot of them are like, for instance, let me explain it. See, I play the harmonica, so there's 19 of them. Does that make sense? All different keys, different major, minor, high, low, all different kinds of stuff. So that's why it's kind of cheating to say I play 50 instruments. It's true, but it's not true, if you know what I mean. So I just did a trick I did the other day for the first time, which was wet the canvas with those big brushes, and that makes, these are water-soluble pastels. Crazy, huh? Whoever heard of such a thing? Well, the Charvin, to those of you who are Americans, Charvet, to you French friends. Good friends of mine in Marseille and other places in France. Went there and painted with them, for them, about 10 years ago. Isn't that fun? Man, I wish that was my painting style. As I said that the last time I painted it. Anyway, what a glorious day. Oh my goodness, you could hardly get a more beautiful, pretty day than we're suffering through right now in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. About 75, 6, 7 degrees, something like that. Of course, I'm standing in the shade while I'm showing you my equipment. Here's my easel. I have a couple of different umbrella holders on it. Only need one at the moment. Oh, little more explanation since I'm explaining stuff. See that big black box with the silver aluminum trim? Yeah, I built that. That has 2 deep cycle marine batteries in it. That's where my power is coming from, and that should keep that would keep me, I think, all the way up until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or midnight tonight, I would think. You regulars here, you know that I'm just hello, Matt Chan. Yes, I'm in. You got the answer to that, right? I'm in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, in America. And I hardly even know yet what I'm going to paint. I know that sounds crazy. I'm going to turn down my music just a little bit. Not that much. Hang on. Let's get my control device out here. If I can turn it down a little bit easier. Some of you might be wondering, do you have a permit? And the answer is absolutely, I do. I do indeed. Every year I pay $40 or something like that for a permit so I can do this legally. Small price to pay in my book. All right, now you can help me decide what to paint. Turn you so you're looking the same way I'm looking. Ignore the man walking up the sidewalk. Okay, so that's one view. Let's talk about it for a minute. What on earth would make me want to paint this? The answer is always the same. Listen, you artists, okay? The answer is always the same. What would, I'm not saying I am going to paint, but what would make me paint this? The answer is light. Exactly. That's if you're painting a still life, a good portrait, a landscape, anything. What makes you want to paint this? The answer is always the same. Light. Now, you can get a lot more detail with that. So it would be light and shadow, of course. Play of light. Not just light, but play of light. Reflections on buildings, shadows of trees. Now, understand, it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon here, and the sun is moving that way. I'm looking south, so this is one of those days when the sun's moving west, okay? Yuck, yuck. So, as I'm out here, all this is going to disappear, so to speak. So what do you do as a plein air painter? Well, one of the things you do is you pick up a camera, which in this case is a backup phone, old phone. All of my old phones, by the way, have been put into service as backup devices. I'm now taking an HDR photograph, high dynamic range. By the way, if you have an iPhone or an Android, it has fake HDR on it, okay? So you could see on your phone, there's a little device on your camera. It says HDR. Don't believe it. It's not real. If you want real HDR, you have to order it. You have to buy the app. So what high dynamic range, what it does, it takes 3 pictures. 1, 2, 3. Overexposed, middle, and underexposed. Then it puts those 3 together in the computer to make the best. Even if you like taking pictures with your phone, you should have HDR. If you're an artist, you should definitely have. All right, so that's one view. Understanding, now, okay, so let me back up. The sun, this is one of those days again. This is one of those days when the sun's going to be moving all day long, right? So it's this is called plein air painting, right? French, pronounced plein air. So either I stand here, let's go back this way. Let me tell you how a plein air painter has to think. Either I'm looking at this scene and going, bam, that's it, I like it just the way it is, so I took a picture. Or I finger on chin, or I go, well, you know what? I think it's going to be more interesting, more enchanting, more fascinating, more interesting in about an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. and then I try to visualize what the light is going to be. Now, as a matter of fact, I don't think that's the case today, because it's the kind of tall buildings here, all shadow, all shade, okay? But that's the way you think. Now, let's point another direction and do the same thing. So here's another thing I might paint. Looking across the street, by the way, the benches, and I would put people in the benches, right? The benches are a nice psychological element, focal point, especially when I put people in them, a person or whatever. Now, I don't know how much you know about my artwork and my style. In the last couple of years, I've gotten so I actually very much like painting cars. Realistically, I used to paint them pretty abstract and sloppy, and then I changed my mind. There's, by the way, that was just a regular photograph. Now going back to an HDR, high dynamic range, I think that's what that stands for. Overexposed, underexposed, and middle exposed. And then it puts them together, and what is light makes dark, what is dark makes light. So you get usually a much better image. You know, brighten that. Of course, you can still edit it a little bit. Save, done. What would make me want to paint this scene? What's the answer, students? What's the answer? The one-word answer? Light. Thank you. Exactly. Light. Now the light, I'm thinking now, in this light, in a couple hours, probably will be better, because then the shadows from these trees will be creeping across the street. So then I have to imagine, and this is kind of only if you're good at this, forgive me for pulling rank, but you have to be able to picture stuff then and just experience. All right, but I like that. But I like the dark car, by the way, that, who knew? Who parked that car there? It's just perfect. I like the dark black car silhouetted against the light cars in the light street. See, and the plants here silhouetted, that's nice. And a person sitting here in the shade, that's nice. The green trees, blah, 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 blah. All right, I'm not done yet, though. This is crazy. By the way, I don't usually do this. Usually when I set up my easel, bam, I know exactly what I'm going to paint. The reason I didn't do that today is two reasons. I'm here for a short time, small canvas, this is a quickie, and a lot of stuff to set up. So I drove up, said I could paint that. So this down here that I showed you is my default setting. But I have a few minutes here. I've taken a few minutes. That's not so good, right? A little bit flat. That's okay. There's the capital of North Carolina. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. By the way, I've painted that building probably 25 times, maybe more, over the years, from all different angles. So I love architecture. The lighting right now on that is terrible, okay, because it's just a wash. By the way, here's a good tip for you artists. Two lightings that are bad in plein air paintings, real simple. The sun is the light, right? Here's the kind of sunlight you don't want. Sunlight right behind you, and sunlight right in front of you. That's what you don't want. So that's why when I was looking that way, it was pretty good, because the sun's off to the side. This is terrible because the sun is almost exactly right behind me. That's why that building is completely flat and boring. Get it? So terrible lighting, but I'm not even going to take a picture. But I can imagine, and I already know, these trees over here, when the sun starts to set, there's going to be gorgeous diagonal. By the way, I do solemnly swear, this is your oath, that anytime, especially anytime I paint a flat plane, like the side of a building, I will always put a diagonal shadow on it. That's another story. I hope you've heard that in the past. Now, if I do that, some of this stuff, let's zoom in here for a minute. Like, I have two street light poles right on top of each other. That's not good, right? So I would eliminate one or the other, probably the close one, and probably keep the far one. By the way, you can probably tell by what I've said just so far that I don't paint sentimental scenes. Like, I'm not going to take out these modern cars and put in a horse and buggy or a 1934 sedan. You understand? Some people do that, but That's not my thing. So, and I'm not, like some people would say, oh, you don't want telephone poles, you don't want wires in your painting. And I say, oh, heck yeah, I sure do. There's no wires here, but anyway. So there is romance in what is actually there. But this is a bad mashup, so I'd probably remove the close one so that we can see the traffic light. By the way, traffic lights are a wonderful psychological element in a painting. Either red or green, not yellow. That would be silly. Anyway, that's a real possibility, but if I paint that way, I'm going to be predicting what it's going to look like in about 4 hours, which is about the time actually before 4 hours I have to start packing up. So that's an issue, because I would be packing up here before I even get to see the lighting that I'm portraying. Now, I can do that. Let me think about that for a minute. That's probably, I'm sure, that's a more marketable image, again, with the shadows, because it's an attractive building, right? Us artists, we are weird, let's just admit it. I'm very much drawn to this scene because of the light, but most people who walk into a gallery, they're not quite as weird as we are. I would have to make this really enchanting. Enchanting is play of light, okay? So give me just a minute. Let me stop talking to you for a minute. And you just stare at my canvas and let me think about what I want to do here. Oh man, you guys are chatting up a storm. From India, wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In Japan, oh my goodness. From Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oh my goodness. Oh my great chats. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And an architect. Oh, you guys are too much. Thank you. What fun. All right. Now let me settle down and focus now. I basically have 3 scenes. Straight down the sidewalk, the one looking across the street, and that black car that I just pointed out is about to leave. So I'm going to take one more picture of that scene before she drives off. And another one, my HDR got turned off. Hang on a second. There we go. Hey man, thanks for watching over the city. Oh, I don't want to pick up a horn and play it, but hang on. Let me stay focused. I'm going to take another picture. Sometimes, by the way, this is a good trick. Taking a photograph actually does help you visualize. Like right now, I'm using my camera to frame an image. Get it? I'm not in bondage to the picture I took. But it is a possibility. I zoomed in quite a bit, and it's a decent option. All right.
What are you, a photographer or?
Painter and a musician.
Oh,
Painter and a musician.
Okay. I'm going to eliminate the Capitol building. Be arbitrary. And this, getting back to this scene that I'm not going to tilt you up here. This scene with a person there, you see the dark car's already gone. With later sun, so shadows of the trees. I like those trees. I like the light and business in the windows down there. Done. That's where I'm going. Now, deciding what to paint is the easy part. And I think this kind of thing all the time. I'm a good artist, and I'm trying to think of a name. I just drew a blank. My artist friend in Australia. There's a lot of artists in Australia, so anyway, he's so good at this. All right, I'm going to start drawing. Yep, we're going to start with orange, and oh, look here, I'm running out of orange. I didn't check all my supplies before I left home this morning, so I'm going to mix up a little bit of yellow and red to make orange. Clever, hey? Nice dry weather today, so my acrylics will dry quickly, which is wonderful. All right, so frame high or frame low? Frame high or frame low? Frame high or low? High, which cuts out a lot of this foreground. No, low. Wow. Okay, surprise. So this is a car. This is the car. This is the building. This is a planter. This is a bench. And another planter. No bench over here. I could add one if I want to, but I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm drawing. Whoops. You missed all that, didn't you? Sorry about that. Okay, back here. That was quick. You can hardly see. Okay, the orange lines is what I just did. Usually I pick a very light color for my first drawing, so that as I draw it again and again and again, I use darker colors, and then the earlier lighter drawing more or less disappears. That's why I drew that so quickly, because there's trees too. The trees are a big part. All right, I'm going to go right ahead and draw that again, this time with red. Now, those of you who are new to my channel, new to my painting, let me show you my paints again. These are all acrylics, mixed, except for the white, that's fluid, liquid acrylic. All the other colors are mixed, about 50% medium, any old medium. In this case, it might be Liquitex gloss, medium, and varnish. Okay, so it's a 50% liquid fluid acrylics, not in a tube. That'd be okay, but it just require more work for me to make some. Okay, so the bottom line then is all these colors are transparent. All right, and I'm feeling like that one planter has got to be in the right spot. So I'm gonna move it up. Do you see, by the way, here's my earlier drawing here, and I just moved it up about an inch, and to the right about an inch and a half, inch and a quarter. Does that make sense? So that flexibility, that tendency, the temptation to lock in is what you have to resist. After your first drawing, after your first rough sketch, don't lock in. By the way, you saw me hold my brush. That's one of the oldest tricks in the book, right? Hold your brush up to straight line angles to replicate, to get the angles right. And then the bench, I'm actually going to raise, I'm going to make a little bit of fiction here. I'm actually raising the bench up. Let's get that angle right though. Raising the bench up about 6 inches from what it actually is. That's so that the hand, anyway, long story, just so that the composition comes out right, okay? And then I'm pretty sure I'll put a person sitting here, and that would be about a person about this size. Most of the time when you put a person in your painting, most of the time you do people by twos, in groups of two. Usually, because usually you're not, I would say, you're not trying to convey a sense of aloneness. Usually you want to convey a sense of community, friendship, fellowship, whatever word you want to use. But because of the position of this painting, I think that person is going to. So it's not. I'm not at all trying to convey. I mean, I could be, but I'm not trying to convey a sadness, like a isolate, alone, blah blah blah. No. That's not the way I'm feeling about this. This is a beautiful spring afternoon. By the time the painting's done, it'll be like, ooh, and there's a street light right here. I moved the street light over about 3 feet from where it is, actually, and there's a tree here. By the way, I just did a little clinic. Right now, I just did a little lesson in trees. Let me show you the tree. In actuality, all these trees are quite perfectly vertical, right? Like planted trees. But if a vertical tree right here would not be pleasant, so I tilted it. So nobody will complain. They won't say, wait, all the trees in a city are vertical. And not that one. And it's more pleasant. All right, so now I seem to be running out of room for that dark car, and I think that's okay. The one I was talking about earlier, I think that's okay. By the way, in a little while, any minute, my alarm on my phone is going to go off, and I'm just going to leave you guys hanging because I need to run half a block down the street and put new money in the meter, in the parking meter. Okay, I actually need to move my car and put money. So there's cars. Now at this point, I'm gonna paint the cars that are actually there. They're very ordinary. The sense one would get from the painting, even though I'm going to render them pretty realistically, which is, again, not what I used to do. I used to just, abstract-ish cars. But I don't do that anymore. It's a long story. I'll give you the play-by-play. Okay, that little bit of open, that's really important. I'm going to leave that there. Now, I think on the far side of this street, the next most important shape is actually these trees. So I'm going to, I'm to the other side of the street, past the cars, and I think you're getting the idea. I am not obligated to put the trees in exactly the realistic spot. So I'm free to move them around a little bit. Got it? Yep. Of course you do. They're more or less equally spaced because, as most of you, that's the way cities are, right? The planted little trees are spaced evenly. Blah blah. That's part of the panache, part of the atmosphere of a city street is the landscaping. The flowers up close. By the way, big flower here. By the way, I very often when I'm critiquing paintings, and somebody presents a painting that is done on a toned canvas, a traditional red toned canvas, I usually say, "Ooh, I love painting on a toned canvas." And then the question might be, well, why don't you do it yourself more often? And the most traditional color for a toned canvas, well, okay, the most traditional is brown. But in the contemporary world, the most traditional is red. And the reason I don't typically paint on a toned canvas is for the reason that you're seeing right here, is that so very often I actually draw in red, yellow, orange, red, going to purple, and so on. And so I achieve this, in a sense, the same effect. In fact, one of the descriptions you could put on my style of painting is I use a glorified toned canvas. Like a toned canvas, but instead of all one color, I actually use the process of toning the canvas. I use that process to draw. Got it? Does that make sense? So when my painting is finished, I'm hoping that much of this red will be peeking around the corners. The way that it does with a toned canvas. Oh, is that Kanye in the background? That's so fun. No, I'll tell you who's playing music in the background. And by the way, the music that you're hearing is all pretty. I'm going to make this smaller, by the way. So, redrawing this little planter again for the third time. First time I drew it here. Second time I moved it here. Third time I'm making it smaller. And the only reason I make a point about that is that I find that early journey painters seem to have a hard time doing that. Once they've drawn their image, they tend to lock in. Okay, so don't lock in. Let yourself in. Same thing. The square thing underneath it, I'm moving it up about half an inch. And who's to say, as I continue to render this scene over and over and over again, just because I'm using pencils doesn't mean I'm locking in. Okay, so, and again, just for those of you who may be new, just a word about the pencils. First of all, what are they? They're distributed by Jerry's Art Rama. Can you see that? And they're called Jumbo Jet Black. Made in Austria, it turns out. I would have thought everything's made in China, but they tell me it's made in Austria. I don't know why they would tell me any different if it wasn't true.
I love it.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
May I take a
Please
So what?
plaster me all over social media.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have a card? Thank you.
You're welcome. Are you all from here? Are you from here now?
I'm from New Jersey. I'm visiting.
But that's not a New Jersey accent. What are you?
No, it's not. It's a made-up accent.
I love it.
The fact that you're still going along with this, I can't.
Welcome to visiting Raleigh. Okay, so the pencils. Again, forgive me, all you regulars. You've heard this story so many times. You can take a bathroom break here. I stumbled on it about 5 years ago when I was doing one of my series of abstract paintings. Now, I got this guy. He's going to have arms back, so there's nobody on the bench right now. You understand? But I want him in a real relaxed position, and his legs crossed. Now, I'm trying to decide this knee going that way or that knee coming this way. I feel like it's his foot coming toward us. That's just the way I'm feeling it. Okay, and a little bit of what you're seeing right now is anatomy practice, right? Some of you might say, how do you draw that guy so fast? The answer is because I've drawn 10,000 human figures over the last 50 years. Probably more than that in actuality. Okay, so practice. Now you don't have to do 10,000, but you'd be surprised how quickly you will learn. If you study, pick up one of those books or websites or whatever, and start practicing. And I'll be drawing him over and over and over again. And I have him in that position because this is not a sad figure. Okay, that would not fit my sense, my feeling about the same thing over here. I'm making this pot considerably smaller than it was the first time around. I have all kinds of perspective challenges going on here, but I love perspective. I love vanishing points and eye level, all that kind of stuff. I do it fairly well. It makes sense because I paint cityscapes all the time. Cityscapes over the last 20 years, not quite that long, 17 years, 18 years. Cityscapes have been my bread and butter, my stock in trade, my primary focus. Okay, so just in case you're wondering. All right, so there's that tree. The placement of it is quite realistic. I just leaned it over. Another comment about that. First of all, I have a vertical shape right here. Don't forget, the edge of the canvas is a vertical shape, a vertical line, right? And I have a vertical line right here with the street light. I wouldn't want that to lean over. It would look like an accident. So it'd be painfully redundant to have a vertical tree right here. So because it's a tree, I can get away with. And as I said, even people who live in Raleigh and have been downtown, are familiar with downtown, even they won't probably object or detect and say, wait a minute, all our trees are vertical. It just won't happen. Probably. Okay, so here's my first indication of shadows. Once again, because I'm not painting the exact scene. By the way, one of my main cars is now gone, so I'm glad I took pictures. Right? I'm not painting this scene. I'm painting this scene in about 2.5 hours. So about 4 o'clock, 2.5 hours from now, when I know the sun shadows will be going across the street. So that was my first hint. All right, let me get back to explaining the pencils. Whoops. And I'm going to pull up my photograph of the cars, because again, I have decided not to paint just quote unquote cars. I've decided not to paint just ordinary cars, but in fact to paint specific. Thank you. And it serves my purposes very well that the cars that were there, and this car that was there, is a very ordinary and ignorable car, kind of like a hatchback. Somebody who loves cars would tell me exactly. I don't care what kind it is, but it's very ordinary. It's, Honda, Toyota, Chevy. It's not a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or even a Camaro or a Mustang, right? A muscle car, any hot, Corvette, Stinger would be more hotter than that. So, which means it's a very ignorable model. So nobody will, if it was a Ferrari, and sometimes I have painted Ferraris. Hang on, I'm going to take another picture. I have painted Ferraris because there was one there. Does that make sense? Now, I'm changing my mind slightly. I'm going to take a picture of the 3 cars that are there right now. So new pictures and close-ups. Pardon me while I step aside for a minute. Because they're not going to be here. Oh, now that one's a BMW. That's a little bit of a hot car, if you will. Okay, but perfect. Just a nice car. Like, by the same token, I don't want to paint a 1972 Bel Air, an old one. It was fixed up. Anyway, see, do you get the idea? I'm not trying to make a point with the cars that I'm painting. They are just props. I want to get a better shot of this, the third of these cars, though. I'm standing on a bench, believe it or not. All right. I want it to look like an ordinary day. As far as cars go, I want it to look like, normal day in downtown, whatever town this is. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I will draw all these. Okay, now back to, sorry, I keep getting on and off the subject. Back to the pencils. As you can see, the pencils are good for drawing, but that's the secondary reason why I use them. Okay, I can draw with brushes. I don't need to use pencils to do that. The reason I use the pencils is because I like the way the scratchy pencil lines, black scratch. I just like the abstract lininess of them. That's all. There's nothing to do with like, oh, you need pencils to draw with. No, I don't need pencils to draw with. Anyway, there's a planter. Now, tree. And I don't know what kind of trees these are, but I will indeed render them fairly accurately, carefully. By the way, that's a good tip for those of you early journey landscape painters. If you want to paint better trees, paint specific trees. Don't just paint trees out of your head. Gag almighty. No, paint that tree. All right, that's the way. All right, that's enough pencil for now. And all of that is, whoops, sorry, all that is dry. So now I can proceed to do some. Hello, Michael. It is very good to be back outside again. Oh yeah, somebody. Yes, I'm in downtown. I am in a downtown area. Sirens are a part of downtown life, aren't they? Always, 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 always. Okay, I'm going to do glazes next. I'm deciding what color to do first. I'm going to start with warm yellow orange. And then putting a bunch of glaze on the brushes so that I can do very thin transparent glazes. In other words, not too opaque, right? Even more opaque, even more transparent than they were. By the way, yes. Some of you ask, when you rub your brushes over the pencil, doesn't the pencil smear? And the answer is yes, absolutely it does. So you use that smearing property to your advantage. And mostly that means in my case, it means I rub it once, maybe twice, but no more, because then it becomes a mess. But it does in fact, let me see if I take you out of here just for a second. It does in fact smear. Let me bring you up close so you can see it. So do you see those streaks right there? But those are not unpleasant. It would be unpleasant if I went back and forth. Likewise here, do you see the gray in there? But it's a fun smear. So you just have to use it to your advantage. If you try to avoid it, you'll probably drive yourself batty. But you use it, just enough smear, if I can use that word, not too much. Okay. So that sunshine, afternoon sun is going to be bathing that wall, those cars in the street especially. But here in the foreground, we're going to have a shade. The whole foreground is going to be in shade, kind of like it is right now. Let me point you over there. See, that's accurate and realistic. Hey, you guys hold on just a minute. The parking guy is here. Let me go talk to him for just a minute. I'm going to turn you off for a second, I think. All right, can you hear me? I unplugged you so I wouldn't be violating that man's privacy. The meter man, not a meter maid, a meter man this time. So I found out that I have to move my van, but I can't leave it in the same block. It comes up in the computer as the same zone, same parking zone. So there you go. All right, so there's my first swipe of the shadow going across the street. Yeah, that's fiction right there right now. That's my guess. Of course, I want this guy all in shadow, this tree in shadow, shade up here. Sorry. So you're beginning to see now more the composition, if you will, more real composition of the painting. Now back here, there are windows, which I'm going to make, at least for now, I'm going to make initially darkish. Here's shadow underneath the cars. Now, and often I don't use green in the underpainting at all, but I am going to today. That represents the canopy of trees across the street. Yeah? And since I've got green on my brushes, I might as well do a little bit here in these planters. As I said, very often I do the whole underpainting without any green. Instead, I'll do yellow and blue on top of each other, which creates a more interesting green than just out of the tube green. Anyway, but that's right there. That's plenty interesting enough. Now, the next layer, next phase, I always say this, sorry, I'm going to say it again. This is one of my favorites, which is opaque white. I'm looking for larger brushes and I don't have any, so I'm going to go with these. All right, this first layer of opaque white, whereas all the other acrylic containers here are cut about 50-50, half paint and half medium, right? Not the white, of course, that would waste both the white paint and the medium. There's no use, if you will. If you want to buy a bottle of transparent paint, it's called air. You don't buy transparent, it's a waste of money. And there's some paint manufacturer somewhere who sells what they call transparent white, which is, they just needed an English major helping them out there. What they really meant is translucent, but then they thought, well, people will be confused by that, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, don't buy it. It's a waste of money. If you want your paint to be transparent, add medium to it, add water to it, Anyway. Now, so this, I just love this, and I love this phase. Maybe my favorite stage of all the phases is this very first white. And you'll notice that the acrylics are not quite dry, and that's perfectly fine with me. I like creating a bit of a mess. When I rub my white brush across the wet paints, I like the little mess that is. That's great. Now, let's pick out a car. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what? I am going to change my mind about which car is going where. That's why I took all these pictures. So right until now, I don't know if you can see that, I've got a hatchback, but I've really got two hatchbacks right next to each other. And instead of that, so I'm changing this time, I'm not only changing my mind in, how to draw the object, but I'm actually changing my mind in what it is that I'm drawing. Again, stay flexible, man, stay flexible. So I have a nice picture here of a white BMW. It's kind of a, mildly sexy car. I'm sure I would think it was a really sexy car if it was mine. But anyway, it's a nice car. But again, it's not so outrageous that somebody will make the mistake of thinking, "Ew, this guy likes BMWs." I mean, that's absurd, right? Right. This painting is not about cars, but it's okay to have. It's like if you're going to accidentally put a woman in your painting, she might as well be attractive, not outrageous, not crazy, because then they think you're doing some different. But just generally speaking, forgive me for saying so, but a thin-ish woman, not Finnish, from Finland, thin-ish, T-H, thin-ish. And again, I mean, this is not body shaming or anything like that. That's just, I don't think. People, when you walk in the mall, just say for instance, and they have all this clothing stores, which are mostly women's clothing stores, as you well know, they all have mannequins in the windows, and they're all thin, right? That's just, okay, just get over it. That's not body shaming, that's just the reality. But what I'm talking about is not at all related to sexy babes. I don't like that. I really don't. Not because I'm a prude. I'm very happily 41-year happily married man, which, as you probably may know, is not that common, a little bit rare. So, but it's a distraction, and it's a cheap. Usually, if somebody has to put half-naked babes in your paintings to sell your paintings, and a lot of great painters do that. Now, totally naked babes, that's a completely different story. That's a classic, if it's a classic nude. Anyway, now let's get off that subject, because I will start ranting about some of my fellow artists. Next thing you know, I'll be ranting, so let's draw the line at that. So I want to find, never mind, I'll find it later. All right, so one of the questions facing me is how much light is going to be hitting these buildings, and how much light is going to be coming out of the windows. Now, right now, there are neon lights. Can you guys see that? If I point over there, can you see way across the street there? You see the neon lights in those storefronts. I don't know if I'm going to include that or not. That remains to be seen. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to paint right at the moment. I'm going to paint abstractly or compositionally. That is, I don't care what it's a picture of, so to speak. Ooh, they're nice. See, an accident just happened. That was good. What's good? Light, like the shadow here, and it goes up here. So not a straight line, that would be bad, but coming up. So a little bit more gaps in between the streets, sun hitting, yeah. So that's compositional, abstract composition thinking, not realism. All right, that's actually quite nice. The composition, again, I'm talking about. And when when an artist says, "Ooh, that's nice," they're not bragging. They're a little bit surprised themselves, at least in my world, unless you're a hyper-control artist. I've talked about that enough times. I don't like hyper-control painting because you eliminate the possibility of transcendence, of something truly magical happening if you paint in control. Now, if you paint out of control, you're taking a risk. You could have a train wreck, you could have a crash and burn. You could. All right. So that's a risk I'm willing to take in order for the possibility of transcendence to take place. All right, that's actually working quite well. Again, that's not bragging. That's like, ooh, that's surprise. Hang on just a moment. I do need to clean these brushes. By the way, so I'll point you two things I have on the ground. One is a rug to catch paint, and the other is a smooshy pad to make life easier on my feet. Got it? So just for those of you who maybe want to take up plein air painting, those are two very convenient things. Just another word about plein air painting. The way I do it is very unusual in my generation. Okay, most plein air painters are painting anywhere from 4 by 6 inches. James Gurney, for instance, up to maybe 8 by 10 or 10 by 12 inches. That's typical plein air painter. This canvas, which is small for me, is 24 by 30. The smallest canvas that I typically do plein air is 18 by 24. So as I like to say, the day that they told us to paint small, I must have been absent that day and didn't get the memo. So 17 years ago when I started my plein air career, I started out painting large, and have been ever since. I very often, especially years ago, very often painted 36 by 48 was my most common size painting. Now, I carry with me a spray bottle right here, but alas, the spray function is not working, so I'm going to throw this out soon and replace it with one that works. But that's so that I can re-wet the surface of these acrylics, which all of you acrylic underpainters, all of you acrylic painters understand. That's where the word under came from. You understand that very well. Acrylics, and especially on a nice day like this, that's fairly dry, those paints are drying quite rapidly. All right, so now I'm going to go back and draw again. Now, what I just did a few minutes ago in white, yeah, I guess I'd call that a drawing stage. If I count that as drawing, then let's count how many times now I've drawn this subject matter. Orange, red, pencil, white. So I've already drawn it 4 different times, and I'm still open to moving things around, okay? So I'm about to embark on the 5th, number 5, drawing. Again, not tracing, not just slavishly tracing over what's already here, but editing, evaluating, measuring, thinking. Here's one thing I'm going to change. Let's start with this guy right here. I'm going to change the position, I think, of his left arm. I had it up on the back of the bench. Changing my mind. I'm going to have his right arm back over the back corner of the bench, and having both arms up. You know, a person will sit that way for a few minutes, but then very quickly, think about it, very quickly your shoulders will start getting sore. So I don't want to have the guy in a position that will make the viewers start squirming like, ew, I'm getting uncomfortable, because that position is uncomfortable for a while. It's comfortable for a few minutes. There we go. So this arm, I've just moved it. And also trying to, reevaluate the anatomy, make sure that I've got a believable human figure there. Generally speaking, and I've said this before, so let me repeat it, but this is right on the borderline. Generally speaking, when you're doing a landscape, I'm calling it cityscape, but I'm calling it a landscape. When you're doing a landscape and you're putting a figure, a person in the landscape, generally speaking, you do not want to do facial features. The figure's too small, usually, and if you do facial features, it very often comes out looking cartoony. That's just the best way to put it. Looks cartoony. So generally speaking, you don't. Now, I've painted myself in a pickle here because this guy is just close enough, just large enough that I probably can't get away with a complete smudge for a face, right? So I'm going to have to figure out how much of a face to give him, and then I'll be looking for any excuse. Like here's a good tip. Put sunglasses on him. Then it covers your eyes. Another is put a hat on him, and that covers the face. But I don't want a hat on this guy. I don't think, because that would make him too covered. A person with personality, social issues. I'm talking to all you people that wear dark sunglasses indoors in public spaces. Yes, forgive me, but you're doing that because you have social adjustment issues. Step right up, folks. I'll fix all your problems. You don't know it. You just think you're being cool. I'm being kind of silly. Big dose of truth there, but mostly I'm being silly. All right. Let's get on before the rest of you get mad at me. And Matt Chan, I love those comments about your English and using a dictionary. That's great. Oh man. And somebody asked, Ari Han? I'm sorry, believe it or not, my screen on my iPad is so speckled with paint. I can't see small things very well. I really need to get a razor out and clean up my iPad. No, well, yeah, all my paintings are inspirational paintings. Then I just was telling somebody this the other night. Here's one of my typical painting jokes, if you will. I don't mean necessarily laugh your sides up, laugh your guts out joke, but just people off when I'm out painting on the street like this, which again, over the years, this has been my stock in trade. For the last year, it certainly has not been. But someone will come up and they want to be friendly, and so they want to ask a question that sounds artsy. In fact, very often they want to ask a question that sounds artsy. Artsy. For those of you who are not English, artsy. Artsy. Wait, you didn't see that. And here's the artsy salute. Okay, so they want to be artsy, and so they want to ask me something about my painting. So not infrequently, they'll say, "So what's your inspiration for your painting?" And I'm sorry, but I always have the same answer. My inspiration for my paintings is my mortgage. It's my job to paint. It's my job to make and sell paintings. If I don't, no painty, no selly, no selly, no eaty. So I don't sit around, and I think generally speaking, almost all professional artists are like me. They're not quite as blunt, mean, and nasty as I am. Now, the exception is modern artists, and I'll refrain from getting into that lecture at all. That's different. They do, in fact, sit around and wait for the art genie to strike them. I don't wait for no art genie. It's my job. I know how to paint good. It's not my job to sit around and wait until I feel like painting. Let me get a little bit bigger brush. One of these cheap chip brushes. So I can paint a zone down here, paint an area without. There you go. Anyway, so my inspiration is I have to pay my bills. That's my inspiration. I'm gonna pick up some very watery ooh, that was good. That was a good decision. Just changing the shape of the shadow, trying to decide. Now here's a question. Should I have that shadow come across the street and up on the? The answer is yes. I should do that. Again, this is not, as you can see, that's not a realism question. Everything I'm painting right now is made up, is fiction. I'm going to change the shape of that shadow just a little bit. Just that shape is an interesting shape. And the abstract elements, the elements of design are line, shape. Second category is shape. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. I'm not sure about that shadow right there. Let me think about that. Nope. It was too much repeat. Boom, 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 boom. So So I'm going to let that white sunlit area stay right there. All right, let's go back to the smaller brushes and back to purple, darker color. So, by the way, in the world of transparent colors, purple is your darkest color. Okay, in the world of transparence, purple is dark. Now you could say, well, couldn't you do transparent black? Think about that for a minute. That's an oxymoron. If it's transparent, it's not black. You mean gray? Yeah, and no, gray is ugly, and it's not. Then it's lighter than purple. So right now, in the realm of transparent, which is, again, as I say all the time, if you want to stick me in a pigeonhole, so you can kind of categorize or compare me to other people. The proper pigeonhole to put me in would be, oh yeah, transparent. He's that guy that paints layers and layers of transparent color, and then just finishes at the very end with opaque stuff. Well, opaque white, by the way, the white, but that's another story. I'm getting too deep in the weeds. Let's back up. All right, I was starting to, I just realized, I started talking about the music, and then it is pretty carefully selected for accompanying me while I'm painting outside. And all the music that you hear is copyright available, copyright free, because if it weren't, I'd be getting all these nice little letters from YouTube saying, the music you played is owned by blah, blah, blah. And the consequences vary according to how gross the infraction was. Okay, I think I'm going to have 4 cars. Let's make this one a little bit bigger. So I'm redrawing, and right at the moment, I'm really not looking at any cars. I have pictures. I'll look at them later. Okay. Let me go back to one of my first statements when I was setting up my easel and deciding what to paint. Remember, I looked first, and by the way, for those of you who've been with me the whole time, look how much shadow, look how different that is than it was an hour ago. Very different. Same thing here, the shadows of the trees are in fact starting to creep across the street even as we speak. Okay, but when I first got here, if you were here, not when I was first broadcasting, and I said, what would make me want to draw this scene? Remember the same answer, always the same answer. It is the light, all right? And ignore what's actually happening there. I just want you to look at my painting. It's always about the light. It is always about the light. So if I'm doing a good job, which, jury's still out, right? Whether I'm doing a good job or not. If I'm doing a good job, it's because I'm creating interesting light, play of light, interesting light. By the way, interesting light does not mean, quote unquote, which way is the sun coming from. That's what a third grader, an 8-year-old should ask that question. If you're 8 years old or younger, then that's an appropriate question for you to ask. I'm being a little mean and facetious. I'm assuming everybody watching me is older than 8 years old, unless somebody's watching with their child. No, that is so elementary. And the reason I don't allow anyone to take credit for getting that correct is because so many times early journey painters, they feel like that's a big deal. Like answering the question, which way is the light coming from? And if they get, that's a place where a beginner can get stuck. Well, I got the light coming the right way. Yeah, that's the way to go. Way to go. You don't get kicked off the field then. Good for you, which you do. If you got the light coming from the wrong way, so, you do get kicked out. But you don't get any points on the board. We expect you to get that right. You don't get any points on the board. That just means your field is on the. Your team is on the field. That's all that means. You don't win any games by answering that question, which way is the light coming. Does that make sense? And I know I'm being a little bit mean, but trust me, it's for your own good. All right. So the whole time while I'm painting, pretty much the whole time, well, there's a whole lot of things I'm thinking about, of course, but the whole time while I'm thinking about, what can I do to make this light more interesting? What can I do to make the light more interesting? Oh, by the way, I'm discovering just now that I'm going to have some light issues. See, sun is starting to hit my canvas, and I'll show you how I'm going to take care of that in a minute. But before I do, I want to. There's trees here, and the trees have. Whoop, 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 whoop. Look at that! Look at how dark that is. Woo! Even though it's transparent, it's way too intense. The trees, of course, are casting shadows right on the wall behind them. So a little bit of think about what's happening here, so we don't make a great big mistake that we have to come back and fix later. Again, even that's too dark. All right, so play of light is the term that I usually use. The most important element of any painting, portrait, still life, landscape, fantasy painting, whatever it may be, the most important single element is play of light. And play of light does not consist of, quote, which way is the light coming from, close quote, okay? In fact, don't congratulate yourself at all if you get that right. Just way to go, you're older than a third grader, okay? I know I'm being kind of mean on purpose. All right, let me show you what I'm going to do here, because I have to, I don't always do it the same way. First, let's put the water bucket. By the way, all of this easel, it's essentially a store-bought easel that I have modified heavily. All of my easels, either I built them from scratch, all of my easels, either I built them from scratch or I bought them and heavily modified them. See, I can't reach that umbrella. So this is heavily modified. Whoops. I have a 45-pound backpack. That was close. Whoops. There goes my alarm. Oh boy. So I've got 5 minutes to get my van parked.
Hey, John Nelson.
Hey, good to see ya. All right. Hang on just a minute. One thing leads to another. I've got a thumb screw, a screw tightener back here, so that I don't trust the natural function of the easel. That would be a mistake. All right, now. I'm hoping if I just move this forward, it's not going to quite do the job, so hang on a little more. I'm going to turn. There we go. That'll buy me a little bit more time. If it didn't, whoops. See, I don't trust the mechanism. If it didn't work, then I would run down to my van, which I have to run down to in a minute to repark. I have other umbrellas and I have other umbrella holders in the back of the easel. All right, so I'm back up, tighten the screw, voila. So I now have no sun on my canvas. While I'm talking about that, people all the time are so outrageously confused. Ironically, today, my easel's set up now here, and I'm painting there. That is very much the exception. Very, very often. My easel is set up here and I'm painting that way or that way. That's the most common. not infrequently, I'm painting that way. And everybody's watched cartoons. I'm being facetious here. Everybody's watched cartoons, so they know how artists set up. All artists set up with their easel facing what they're painting. And you wouldn't believe some of the things that have happened while when I'm painting. All right. I have to go move my van. Let me or keep all my stuff safe. I'm gonna let you guys keep on watching. You're gonna watch my stuff, okay? In fact, that's really interesting. I never thought about that before. And indeed, I mean, if somebody comes and steals something, when I get back, you're going to give me a description that you are now my security camera. Because I have a lot of stuff sitting around here, and I'm going to be gone for several minutes. All right, so thanks for watching. I'm going to turn my music up just a little bit since I'm gone. And I have to find another parking place, so wish me luck. Before I go, I'm going to put more water. My spray bottle is broken, as I said earlier. I need to replace that. Crazy. All right, we good? Thanks, y'all. Be back in a minute. Keep an eye on it for me. I wonder how far you can hear me. I can still hear myself, can you? Yeah. I'm about 70 feet down the street now. I can still hear me. There we go. Whew. All right, coming back. That was just as bad as I thought it might be. And I'm not done yet. Thanks for watching my stuff. Looks like everything's okay. And believe it or not, I gotta run out again. So, not done yet. City life. Hey, I like that theming. It's working okay. Hello, Benji. All right, I gotta go finish paying for my van. I'll be right back. Right? Oh my goodness. What a event. All right. Thank you, Benji. Everything's safe so far. Thanks for watching my stuff, you guys. Is anybody still watching? That's more the question, isn't it? Oh yeah, a few of you crazy people. Way to go. All right, the music's beautiful, but let me turn it down a little bit. Whew. All right. Well, happiness is when you come back to a painting that you like the way it's looking. I do. That's nice. All right. Everything's dry, of course. Goodness knows. I gave it long enough to dry. Next task, quite obvious to me, another layer of glaze, another transparent glaze. All right, so if there's anybody watching who's new to my style, and maybe you're an artist and you're thinking of playing around with my technique, here's a part that I find that my students often get hung up on. When they do the opaque white, which, by the way, strictly speaking, you can see, this is not literally opaque, right? You can actually see through it, but it's opaque paint applied thinly enough so the effect is translucent. All right, but when my students often get confused, like, yeah, but it's not white. I don't want to paint it white because it's not white. Yeah, no. You're going to come back and do glazes on all of this stuff. Okay, so all the acrylic white layers are not going to stay white. None of them are going to stay white. All right. In fact, so right now you're going to see the fulfillment of what I'm talking about. We're going to do, again, yellow, orange on top of that white. Why? Because it's a nice, warm afternoon, late afternoon sun shining. I don't know if you know this or not, but you and I, we're all flying around a warm star, a yellow star, okay? Just a little bit heavier than I want, so I'm just painting, reverse painting with a rag here, just take a little bit of it up. Oh, that's nice. There we go. That's probably enough. Hang on though, let me look for a second. Yeah, we'll save any more subtle coloration for later, I believe. I think I'm going to do a little bit of blue-purple, a little bit of ultramarine, a little bit of dioxazine violet for this lower left-hand corner in particular. While I've got this dark stuff, a bit more of the same. This tree up close won't be seen as green very much. It'll just be seen as dark. Like that's very literal. Let me show you. See those leaves, the close leaves? They are green, but our eye picks them up primarily as dark. So not so much green, just dark. So a little bit of dimensionality on those cars, just a little bit. Okay, that's probably the last glaze that I will do in acrylics. Yeah, I was debating for a moment there. and the debate is over. Yes, I'm going to do one more layer of dark details in dark transparent acrylic glaze. Then I'll do a final acrylic white, and then I'm ready to go to oils. Okay? Some interesting things are happening, by the way, here in the foreground. Now, all of this was in shadow earlier today. Tell you what, I'm just going to take a picture of that in case it strikes my fancy later. All right, enough. What happened to my music? Oh, I know it's one of the quieter tracks on this iPad. Too bad. iPod. I mean, all right. So back to some fairly small brushes, and just a little bit more. I could still see some of my earlier pencil marks, because that would be an option right now as well. Would be to do some pencil. Right now I'm using a combination of phthalo blue and ultramarine, which makes just about a perfect color wheel blue, true blue. It's a combination of those two. A little bit of detail on the trunk. Oh, you know what? While I'm up there, I'm going to open brown for the first time. So many times I'll do the entire acrylic underpainting without using the brown at all. But lo and behold, here I am. I'm actually going to use brown, blue, and green. Because I want to do some in acrylics. I sometimes will change this kind. I will often save this much detail, this kind of detail, for the oil stage only, but don't want to this time. So I want to do some of these, the leaves that I just showed you a few minutes ago, the dark leaves up close. By the way, it's painting stuff like this. If you're not in the habit yet of using two hands, you should be. And stuff like this, like foliage, is some of the easiest places where you can start. Because you'll feel, of course, very strangely uncoordinated for quite a long time using two hands. But just get over it and keep doing it. I think it was about 2 years that I forced myself to paint with two hands before it felt natural for the first time. 2 years of practice. I mean, my paintings got better instantly, so I was never tempted to go back. But used all that up. Let's make up some more phthalo, ultramarine, brown. I don't care what color brown, just brown, and a little bit of violet, purple as well. All right, just a dark. Oh, I used some green last time. Didn't this time. That's all right. I like it. I like the color we got. Once again, even though all this is dark, whoops, I'm sorry. I left you pointed the wrong way. I'm sorry, you guys are probably all yelling at me. Sorry about that. Oh, so I've been doing all these leaves up here. I'm so sorry about that. My hands are rather full. Parking vans, paying meters. All right, I like that. While I've got that color, let's go ahead and do some of that right here. And there are no flowers right now in these planters, but I reserve the right to add flowers later if I so choose. I will indeed look at what kind of, what the plants look like. Some grassy stuff and some what hanging over though, not ivy, but it hangs over kind of like ivy. Again, I'm envisioning all of this area, including I'm going to change the shape of this guy's head. Yeah, tilt it forward just a little bit more. All of this foreground is dark, of course, is a dark, what I call a threshold, one of the classic old school tricks of composition, and I use it a lot. I hope not too much, but I use it a lot. Is a threshold of darkness. The foreground is dark, and you step over it, through it, cross it into light. Again, that's not unique to me. I didn't make that up. That's it's as old as Jan Van Eyck, probably. I really should probably pull up pictures of these cars, but I just don't feel like doing it right now. Sorry. Hope I don't regret that. I hope that they're close enough to close that I can fix up the details in oil. Okay, how do I know when it's time to go to oil? Easy. Three things. One, the drawing is almost correct. Two, the colors are almost correct. And three, the values are almost correct. That's when I'm free to move on to oils. And the last layer in the acrylics is always white, because I don't want to get to the oil stage and find that the overall canvas is too dark. That would be a problem. So because the first couple layers of oils are going to be dark, and if the canvas is already too dark, I'll be up creek. Get it? So the last layer in acrylics is always white. So, and the last layer in oils is always almost white. And again, that's not unusual tradition. That's traditional, straight up traditional, ordinary painting. Your lights are lightest lights are last. Let's do. Right, now I'm ready for the last layer of acrylic, which is white, and because I have a hunch, I'm going to break that rule slightly. And I do this not infrequently. It's not the norm, but it's and that is, every once in a while, I will do some opaque, pale color in acrylics. So the rule, if you will, the standard, my process is, in acrylics, all the colors are transparent. The only thing that's opaque is the white stuff. But as you just heard, every once in a while, I break that rule. And I'll do, I think I should get a picture of that car right now. I'll break that rule and I'll do, forgive me. I'll break that rule occasionally and do opaque think that I'm likely to do that. It's just a shortcut. Boy, loud, dramatic music, eh? Got a lot of nerve to beat music that loud. Hard time. I'm actually breaking the rules. I'm not going to worry about it until somebody comes along and complains. If I had a free hand right now, I would certainly turn it down. Just in case you're wondering. Makes me paint in a more cosmic manner, yeah. Alright, that's close enough. Close enough for the oil stage. Wow, beautiful music. I told you earlier that I pay a service, I pay a monthly fee to a thing called Epidemic Sound. I think it must be, I didn't know anything about it a couple years ago, but I think it must be one of the premier music providers, because I hear it on a fair amount of other video productions. They have an extremely wide range of music, and you can tell from what I'm playing that what my taste is in painting music. Well, almost all instrumental. I don't want words cluttering up my concentration. And usually on the peaceful side. The last piece being a little bit of an exception to that, with its grandiose, rather bombastic stuff. Anyway, I like it. Thankful. Epidemic Sound. In case you're a video producer, and it cost me $15 a month. Good bargain in my book. I like their music so well that I actually use it sometimes at home for dinner music. So that's something. This car here will be a little bit more abstract than these two are, and this one here is a little more abstract as well. I'll use my pencil just for a second to make a drawing change on that car. They had the roof too high. And change the drawing back here. Again, the pencils are, I'm not using pencils the way a traditional old-fashioned oil painter would have, used charcoal to block it, to sketch in. I am not. It's not parallel to that. Okay, a little bit more white. More or less, every layer of the painting process, my brushes get smaller. See how small these brushes are. The last time I did white, I was using this size brush. Okay, so generally speaking, with each layer, the drawing gets a little more precise, a little more accurate, a little more tight, if you will. And with each layer of opaque white, this is my second layer of opaque white, I will do a similar thing in oils that I call the final edit layer. A smaller area is covered, smaller area than the last time. Subset, if you will, of the last time I did white. Yeah. One of my favorite descriptions of my painting process, and I do paint weird. I didn't set out to be weird. It just evolved that way. I'm a creative. I'm an authentic creator. Creative. I don't. You might say, well, who taught you how to paint this way? Sorry, you hear me already laughing. Yeah, nobody. What are you talking about? Years of evolution and a number of serendipitous discoveries led to my painting technique, and I'm still evolving, still changing, of course, little by little. Anyway, what was I going to say? I forget, so never mind, it'll come back to me if it was important. Oh, no, one of my favorite ways to describe my painting process. First of all, when one of my paintings is finished, if you were to count them, there would be roughly 20 phases, 20 layers of paint on the canvas, roughly, give or take, okay? So that is one descriptor of how does Dan Nelson paint? Well, layers of mostly transparent color, sprinkled in with layers of opaque color, right? Another broad description, he paints in layers or phases or stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. That's again, just to help you, contrast me to other people that you're learning from. I'm the guy that paints in layers and layers and layers, 20 very often before I'm finished the painting. And one of my favorite descriptions of my painting process is that every one of those 20 layers taken by itself is quite abstract, quite loose, non-representational, abstract, loose, messy. All those words, I'm trying to use synonyms, all right? They're all messy. And yet, when all 20 layers come together in the final product, the image is surprisingly representational, right? That's just one of my favorite ways. Again, that just help you pigeonhole me. I'm more concerned with each brush stroke. I'm more concerned that the mark that I'm making, the literal, absolutely abstract mark that I'm making, I'm more concerned that the mark is interesting. You could say beautiful, but that would get us into a philosophical quagmire that we don't need to get into right now. So let's just leave it at interesting. I'm more concerned that the mark is interesting than accurate. Now, I'm a fairly good drawer, right? So accuracy comes. There's no question I want to be accurate. But I'm more concerned with interestingness than I am similitude, realism, accuracy, rendering, drawing. Okay. Getting my rags wet here. And boy, stuff is drying fast today. Usually I like fast. I prefer fast because I'm painting in layers and layers and layers of acrylic, and in most cases I want the earlier layer to be dry before I proceed to the next layer. I don't know if you can see that. Let me bring you in just for a minute. I want to show you again how I'm changing my mind even at this late date. I just redrew, actually on several of these windows, redrew the grid. See that purple line right there? And right here and right here and right there. That's where I had the mulligans, they're called, the grid in the window last time. This time around in white, I'm changing my mind. It's like, oh, no, I don't really want it there. I want it there. Now, some of you, and I'm saying this to make the point, because some of you, some early journey painters, especially if you're still in the first half of your journey where you're completely consumed, as I think you should be, with similitude, accuracy, realism, and drawing, capturing the realistic image, you'd say, ew, well then that's a mistake. You need to fix that. But no, I don't. Not in the world I live now. All of those extraneous marks just become delightful bits of chaos that makes the overall drawing better, makes the overall painting better, I should say. Let me point out again that I don't need to paint over everything I'm painting right now. But let me point out that especially here, the white that I just put down there is very definitely translucent. And it will, one of the characteristics of acrylic paint is that it becomes more transparent as it dries. Are you aware of that? I think you probably are. All of a sudden, I just decided, you know what? I do think I want some of that sunlight hitting, that pot. What I'm doing right now, I talk about, that's music's too loud for me, just give me a minute. What I was doing, I've developed a habit of very often, I would like to say more often than not, but not quite. I'm not quite there. When I put a mark down with a brush, I follow up by messing up the mark. Often with the handle of a brush, sometimes with a rag, sometimes with a finger, like that. That will do. To create more interest. Some of you know I stopped using the word loose brush strokes, which is a classic. Almost all art teachers through the centuries, or at least my century, have used the term loose brushwork, loose, and I have concluded that is a misnomer. It's misleading to early journey painters because loose means messy, inaccurate, and that is an inaccuracy. I don't want inaccurate marks. So instead of, that's too much of a good thing. So instead of saying loose, I now try to remember to use the term, hello, good to see you, Andre. How about that? That was just wonderful. How about that? I've been friendly to that guy for 20 years. He's never friendly back. But he was friendly today. Hallelujah. Love wins. I'd say acrylic paints grow more transparent as they dry. So I just realized, by the way, I was about to make a mistake. If I had trees, leafy trees all the way across the top of the canvas, that would be bad. Actually, so having a little bit of a break between the trees up there is a good thing. Boundary ratios. I'm not going to define it. I have defined it 100 times, and I'll do it again sometime in an hour now. So actually, the way it is right now, I'm going to have light green, white, off-white, white, light green, and dark green. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 separate color shapes at the top. That's good. All right, I think I'm done. I don't mean done with the painting. I'm done with the acrylics. All right, and I am going to, because of that, then. Yes, Paul, thanks for asking about the bow tie and suspenders. Listen, while I pack up, I will be the first to admit, or the second, since you pointed out, this is not the norm, right? This is not how normal plein air painters paint. as you can tell, a whole bunch of things. Number one, I got a little bit of showbiz in me. Number two, and this was way, way practical, I have discovered, you know the little expression, the clothes make the man? That's hogwash. But when you dress up nicely, people treat you different. The parking meter guy, the policeman that I talked to while I was setting up, it's amazing. It's amazing. You just get treated differently. The English majors, you get treated differently when you dress up. It's quite astounding, and it serves very well. Plus, I to people passing by, I appear approachable. It's like, oh, look at that guy. He's kind of all dappered out there. I bet he's okay with us talking to him. Which, of course, bingo, I am. So there's a bunch of reasons. I don't dress this way at home, you know. Usually. All right, so I'm going to end this broadcast here. Goodness knows it's long enough, and I'm going to decide whether to keep broadcasting or not. I'm sorry I didn't play any music yet. Maybe we should break the ice. Maybe we should break that ice. Pause. Pause music. I am not ready for a performance, I tell you. But what the heck, you guys have been so patient. I'll do just a tiny bit of music before we go. Uncle 60, yeah. Next time, come dressed like a regular artist, which means dress like a bum, right? Correct. All right. This is my micro pedal board. My big pedal board is big. I don't know if am I on the screen? Yeah, close enough. And one of the things I have on the pedal board is a loop station, or a recorder, so I can play something. There we go. Unplug this ear. Testing 1, 2, 3. See if I can get some. See if I can get some going here. If I can't, I'm gonna quit soon. Yeah, do that concert all over again. Right, do we have sound? No. Sorry. Aha. Sound. There, we do have sound. All right. I don't know how good the sound is. There, we do have sound. All right. I don't know how good the sound is. All right. So. Sorry, I'm getting a bad buzz. Forgive me. All right, so I can record that. Let's do that. 1, 2, ready, go. Got a pick I want. Now now I have to turn down this sound so I don't confuse myself. So I can. Can you hear that? Any mistakes are just on the recording. And now, I said earlier, I don't have a microphone set up with reverb because this really needs reverb. So. All right. Again, I didn't finish getting set up because I didn't know I was going to do this exactly. So, no reverb, which, you know, all this stuff needs. Etc. Enough to at least divert people. There'll be more, and there'll be lots better in the future. I'm going to sign off. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.